Turner, President of the Rails Board, and I will call this meeting to order on Friday, April 26, 2019 at 1 p.m. Jody, can you call the roll?
Christine Barr.
Yes, here.
Dave Berry.
Here.
Susan Kusenbar.
Here.
Liza Campbell.
Here.
Michael Campbell.
Here.
Gwen Gregory.
Here.
Jay Caston.
Here.
Paul Mills.
Here.
Scott Boynton.
Here.
Dee Reynolds.
Here.
Nadia Sheikh.
Here.
Thank you. Michelle Simmons.
Here.
Thomas Stagg.
Here.
Laura Turner.
Here.
Thank you.
We have a full board this time.
Great.
Wow, good for us. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Recognition of guests and announcements. We will start here in East Peoria. Do we have any guests here in East Peoria?
Jane Plass, Rails.
Deirdre Brennan, Rails.
Jody Rubel Rails.
Joe Philippek, Rails.
Mary Witt Rails.
Grant Halter, Rails. Robert Morgan, Rails. Jim Krieger, Rails.
Greg McCormick, State Library.
Wesley Smith, Rails.
Ann Slaughter, Rails.
Patty Querum, RSA.
Laura Keys, Belmont Public Library.
Jane Bradbury, RSA.
Emma Hudson, RSA.
Rhonda Bierman, RSA. Lisa Shemansky, RSA.
Kendall Orison, Rails, RSA.
That's right.
See the last one?
Yes.
Okay, we have a full house of guests here in East Peoria, too. All right. I'm going to do this a little different and ask for public comments with the location. So do we have any public comments here in East Peoria?
Do you want to go to Gastonville Ridge?
I thought maybe I would just do the public comments and it'll...
All right, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any public comments here in East Peoria? Okay, hearing none, we will go to recognition of guests in Burr Ridge. Yes.
Oh, Jessica Barnes, Rails.
Diana Rush, Rails.
Ryan Heppel, also Rails.
Stacy Palmisano, Rails.
Dan Bostrom, Rails.
Do we have any public... Emily
Sorry.
Feister, Rails. So hard to see. Now we're done.
Emily.
Emily.
Are there any public comments in Burr Ridge? Okay, hearing none, we will go to recognition of guests in Bolingbrook. Do we have any guests in Bolingbrook? Okay, so I'm going to guess we have no public comments either. Do we have any guests in Coal Valley? Okay, no guests or public comments in Coal Valley. We've done East Peoria. And do we have any guests at the Illinois State Library?
Nope.
Okay, no guests or public comments in Illinois State Library. All right, we will move on to item number 5, adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion and second for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Scott, second by Gwen. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Opposed, no. Motion carried. All right, we will move on to approval of the Rails Board minutes and financial reports and expenditures. From the Rails Board minutes of March 22nd, 2019, the regular meeting. May I have a motion for the approval of those minutes from the March 22nd Rails Board meeting?
So moved by Jay Caston.
I think we had moved by Sue here first and then second by Michael Campbell. Sorry about that, Jay, the delay.
I'll try again next time.
Okay.
It's like a laugh track.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, no. Motion carried. Next up is Jim with the financial report and expenditures.
I will give it from back here.
Okay.
I'll just yell.
Don't forget about the delay.
You have in your packet the financial report for March. We're 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year 19 now. At March 31st, we had $15.2 million in unassigned general fund cash and investment balances. That would fund an estimated 15.7 months of operations. Our cash and investment balances increased $1 million from the February 28th balance as we received another fiscal year 19 Aryan per capita grant payment of just over 1.6 million. We've received through this year all the remaining fiscal year 18 revenues, which was $6,435,000 and $3,550,000 of our fiscal year 19 award, or 35.6% of that. And our general fund revenues, as a result of receiving that much of APC grants, were $2.7 million above budget. So far, investment income, which is $234,000, is nearly $70,000 above budget, as interest rates have increased throughout the year, although they're pretty steady recently, but still much above what we had anticipated in the budget. Our expenditures year to date in the general fund were $725,000 below budget. We've been favorable in nearly in all categories, but the largest are personnel and contractual services. Personnel has been below budget because of delayed hirings. The month of March, we did have as we did in February, no new hires or terminations. But in April, there's a slew of them. We filled pretty much every position now that was open. Contractual services expenditures are are well below budget because we will not meet the budget of LSAP membership grants, although we have given a substantial amount of those, $257,000. Otherwise, not too much new between delivery and LSAP expenses. They are accounting for 50% of our expenditures, direct expenditures on these departments. Can I answer any questions?
Okay, hearing no questions, may I have a motion for the approval of the check voucher register for March 2019?
You'll find that report, the listing at the end of the financial report, and the amount spent for March was $733,466.07. Are there any questions on the details of that?
I'll make a motion that we approve those bills to be paid.
Second.
Thank you.
I was waiting for Jay. Okay, so we had moved by Scott, second by Paul. Jody, will you please call the roll?
Christine Barr,
Yes.
Dave Barry,
Yes.
Susan Busenbaum,
Yes.
Liza Campbell,
Yes.
Michael Campbell,
Yes.
Gwen Gregory,
Yes.
Jay Caston,
Yes.
Yes.
Scott Poynton,
Yes.
Dee Reynolds,
Yes.
Nadia Sheikh,
Yes.
thank you, Michelle Simmons,
Yes.
Thomas Stagg,
Yes.
Laura Turner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Okay, we will go on to item 7, reports, and we'll start with the report from the Rails president. I do not have a report, so we will go on to Rails board committee reports. And we'll start with the Advocacy Committee and Gwen Gregory.
So the Advocacy Committee had a meeting this morning at 11, and we discussed many issues. The committee is still finding our way in our formation of what are our roles and exploring other advocacy groups and what's going on in other groups like the Illinois Library Association and their Advocacy Committee, Public Policy Committee, as well as ISLE. But one thing we're doing is having Rails prepare talking points on different issues. So you can see that today there's some talking points about Explore More Illinois. And we did have some discussion about Explore More Illinois, but maybe some of the other board members might also have some questions or thoughts about Explore More Illinois and the talking points. But we can talk about that later when we have the Service of the Month report.
Okay, any questions about the Advocacy Committee meeting? Okay, we will go on to the Consortia Committee. Paul?
Yes, actually the committee did meet on April 15th. One key highlight I'd like to note is that the Consortia Committee approved a working charge for the Exposing Consortia Holdings Working Group, which is a librarian, phrase if I ever heard. So the crux of this is that many Illinois consortia, currently there's 5, CCS, Prairie Cat, RSA, Sharon Swan, have been using a process called osmosis to upload their holdings to OCLC. The firm that has done a lot of this work is actually a very, very small 2-person firm, if I remember correctly. They are retiring after decades of service to the library community, and this has necessitated a look at how this information is transferred and updated in OCLC, and also exploring options beyond that too. So we had a lively conversation about this, I think a good one at the Consortia Committee. And the charge was approved, and the working group, which consists of Carolyn from Prairie Cat, Rebecca from TCS, Kendall from RSA, John Slanicki from Prairie Cat, Dawn from Swan, Suzanne from the Illinois State Library, and also Anne from Rails, and Cassandra from IHLS, just to catch everyone, will be working on that. And that report is actually due in a fairly short time frame. We are expecting to get recommendations from them at the October 2019 Consortia Committee meeting. Dee and Matt Hammermeister from Pinnacle gave an update on Simply E as well, and the work that's being made to provide a unified app for patrons to use to access all the different e-resources that are available in the library landscape. And work is promising. And actually, just as a note for Matt, we actually did receive feedback that the folks behind this, the lyricists and whatnot, said that Matt Hammermeister has been the best, one of the best techs, if not the best tech they've worked with in getting that data in. So yay for Matt Hammermeister.
Yeah, that's really great. That's a high compliment, I think. They've worked with a lot of people. Yeah.
Anything for those who are at the meeting? Gwen, Scott, anything I forgot that needs to be mentioned?
I was in Italy.
That's what you
So isn't Simply E mostly for e-books?
Initially, yes. We'd love to see it expanded. Certainly e-content goes beyond that, but there's such a diversity of resources there, and having patrons be able to go one resource to not only find and acquire a resource they want would just be a major step forward. But yes, Gwen, I would love to see it go beyond that, but just achieving this with ebooks would be an amazing, amazing first step. And I'd like to thank Rails for really spearheading this effort here in Illinois. It's a much needed resource, and I think is a wonderful example of power that Rails can bring to expand resource sharing in Illinois.
Thank you. And you'll be hearing more about that.
Yes. That is my report, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Paul. The Executive Committee did not meet, so we will go to D with the Nominating Committee.
Yes, thank you. The Nominating Committee did meet to approve the ballot. The election opened, I think, on Monday. Last Monday. Yes. It runs through May 17th. We have quite a robust slate of candidates. We have 2 at-large seats that are being contested. We have 10 candidates for that. We have 2 trustee seats that are also being contested. We have 5 candidates for that and 1 special library seat, and we have 4 candidates for that. So I think that's all really
Is
good.
that the most special library candidates
Yes,
you've had?
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
they-
Yes.
The nominating committee did a really, really
Yeah.
great job.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Dee.
Yep.
Paul, back to you for the policy committee.
Policy committee has not met yet.
Okay. And Jane, next is the resource sharing committee report.
Which is also not met.
Okay. And Sue or Dee, the universal service committee.
Yes.
Well, we met up.
Yes,
Take
take it away.
First, the day before the last board meeting. There is a summary of what happened in your packet. Just some of the highlights. Carol Medal from Gail Borden gave a very passionate talk about what they have tried to do to get their unserved within their library district. She described their district as Swiss cheese, in which there's lots of holes, and they really did sound like a fantastic job to get this on the ballot and get it voted into, but then at the last minute there was a group that started putting signs out, vote no. I think probably the biggest thing is the equity issue, that there's taxpayers that pay for library service and then they don't want, or it appears that they do not want the unserved just to be able to not have to pay for it. Also talked about defining the problems, rural versus suburban. Was it about 1 million? There are about 1 million unserved in the state of Illinois. And if you look at the map, that's it's on the website.
Yep.
On the website, you can see just huge areas that are unserved. I suppose a lot of it's farmland. I don't know.
Some of it,
Some
yes.
of it, but then
Yes.
up in Cook County is a very big
Well, yes, some of it's
group that's
right.
not served.
Yep.
There was a lot of talk about the realtors and the multiple listing service, that some of this farmland has been developed into suburban places. People that
unincorporated,
yes,
new
and people buy
developments.
houses and don't realize that they have no library service. So.
Seemed like one thing that we might want to do is at least make sure people are informed going in, so that if it was part of what is on the sheet that people get when they're looking at houses, at least they know. But I mean, it was a good meeting.
It was a good meeting. Looking at what other states do. I mean, there was a lot of discussion going on. Oh, the Biblio board, they like e-resources, because everybody in the state of Illinois is eligible to, whether they belong into a district or not, they can get on some of the sites.
Right, some of the digital resources.
Yeah, the digital resources.
Madam President?
Right, was part of it, and
in report, it said the problem is rural versus suburban. It's much more nuanced than that. There are problems within suburban areas itself. It's not suburban versus rural. It's that each area has their own separate problems. I'm not sure if the report recognizes that.
I apologize, that's what I meant for it to say, that there are different, you have different kinds of problems in the different areas. I didn't mean to pit them against each other. You're absolutely right, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. Probably say rural and suburban.
Talked about the possibility of the state library issuing card for the unserved residents. And Greg
No
said
problem,
this was not
right?
off the table, but
No problem, or it wasn't exactly.
That may have been what they heard, though.
so anyway, there's a full report in your packet that you can go through.
Well, so was there any interesting ideas from other states that came up?
We didn't. We looked at. We have looked so far at what other states have the problem and or have have situations that might be similar. We have not delved yet into ways they might have solved the problem. That's more research. It was hard enough, frankly, just getting the. Just trying to figure out what it is. I mean, every state is so different. As you can imagine, you've worked in different states, so yeah. So basically, staff is going to. I mean, I think we need to talk to the realtors group and see if we can do something about that. As an example, I think we just need to kind of try to work on it in big ways and small ways.
Yeah, it'd be kind of a shock to go to your library after you've just bought a house and
find out you can't
use the library.
Right.
I think there's potential to even go further upstream than that. Like the town that I live in is looking to annex an unserved area, and that would pull it into the city, but it doesn't pull it into our library district.
Right.
We need to get involved at that level.
Yes.
and say, hey, make this part of the deal that
Right.
they annex to the service district.
Yes.
No.
By the time it gets to the realtors, it's
That was kind of
too
brought
late.
up too, that
Or
there,
the contingent.
that when a house there, and I think Dave was talking a little bit about this, and so was Carol Metal, about how when if a house gets sold, the new when it is sold, it automatically goes into the taxing district, and as part of the title insurance that Attorney Dave was talking about how that might work.
Sure.
So that's, I think, related to what you're saying.
Attorney Dave.
That would be tough. That would be a tough map.
I know, right? Yeah.
I'm just curious, do all states tie the library tax to property taxes? Is that how ours, I hate to say is that how ours is, but we don't
That's
deal
how
with it.
ours is. I think that in some, in some ways, maybe I'm not the best person to answer this, but I would say that in most cases, some kind of tax is
Some
how
type
public
of
libraries
tax
are funded.
supports.
Yeah.
But it's not always property.
Not always so heavily.
Right. Or directly.
Right.
Yeah.
Affected by property tax. The problem, though, does seem to appear in many of the states. It's not. Illinois isn't sitting out there alone on this one. There's a bit of a problem in a lot if you look at the reports.
Yeah.
So we're gonna keep working on it.
Yeah. I think it's good you're addressing it.
We're gonna try.
Okay, moving on to Rails reports, the Rails monthly report, and that will be D.
Yes, thank you. Let's see. So, as you can see from my report, it was quite a busy month. We did have, at the very beginning of the month, an excellent meeting at the State Library with State Library staff and Heartland staff, and we're going to be meeting regularly, probably quarterly going forward, and so that's really great. We're going to hear more about Explore More. As I did want to say a few more words about Simply E. So this, as Paul said, this is it brings together ebooks not all ebooks, certain, but a lot, various vendors. And at this point, we are talking with Lyrasis, which is an organization that is providing support for libraries to adopt this, as well as it's part of a grant that have been a partner on, which is why Pinnacle is able to get this service from Minitex, assistance from Minitex. So for the next year or so, libraries in Illinois are able to do this at low or no cost to get this up and running and see what they think because of this grant. We are interested in potentially putting some financial support behind libraries adopting this or consortia adopting it, because we do think that it could be hugely beneficial to patrons in terms of finding things, and also beneficial to libraries because it will make their resources more findable and therefore more used, and therefore will be good for their budgets because it won't be wasted. They will get more use out of the dollars that they spend. So it's coming up more and more. There's a lot of interest. We talked about it at the member update, and just on that basis alone, I think we got 5 or 6 inquiries about it. So that's really good. And I want to talk to the state library about it because I think it has a lot of potential. You heard that we got a lot of new staff started this month. That's been very exciting. Let's see. I guess I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Did have a huge crowd for the member update, well over 100 people. I think the biggest crowd ever. 100, over 150.
Where was that at?
It was a record.
It's on Polycom. And it was a record, yes. And I think that we had a conversation about the minimum wage. Diane Foote from ILA and I both talked about it, and I think that was a big attraction. I think also Explore More was, people were very interested in that. So that was good. It was a very lively session.
Okay. Any questions for Dee or further discussion? Okay, thank you very much, Dee. We will move on to the service of the month report, which will be on Explore More Illinois, and Jessica Barnes.
Hi. Yes, so April 1st, we launched Explore More Illinois. We had 87 libraries with 15 offers as part of our initial day. And as of today, we're up to 96 libraries with 19 offers. So we're averaging about 1 new offer a week so far. We actually just had our first museum call us rather than us having to go out to a museum. So we'll be adding them next week. So that was very exciting. We also just started testing with SWAN this week. So I don't have a date of when we'll be adding SWAN libraries, but we did start authentication testing with SWAN this week. So that will be approximately another 100 public libraries that will join once we get all the testing completed with them. Just a few other things. Our website for the project is www.exploremoreillinois.org, and I did find out that we didn't have a link to it from our Rails page, so that got taken care of after the advocacy meeting. So there is a link to it now from the Explore More page on Rails. So sorry about that. At the form, you can fill out the authentication form. So the authentication form is what we need to get the information that we need for libraries to join Explore More. And honestly, this week, I've been spending a lot of time just emailing libraries back, like, I've completed the form, is there anything else I have to do? Or I know I have to do the form, is there anything else? And we just need libraries to fill out the form. That's all we need. And then I get an email when the form is complete. We also have a list of attractions on the website, so that's updated every week. And right now it's completely up to date. And we also have a video that shows how the software works. Just again, there's Explore More Illinois is our Cultural Pass program. We have a variety of different museums, attractions, one-time, like one-day festivals. I'm working with a park district right now to try to get them added. So all kinds of different attractions. And it's for all Illinois Public Library residents. And there's no cost for any public library to join the program. I also submitted kind of just like our top 10 most common questions in the board packet. If you have any questions about those or anything else about Explore More, I'd be happy to answer it right now. Or what the future is looking like, or anything that you might have.
Well, we did have a good conversation at the advocacy meeting about it, and thank you for fixing that link already, Jessica.
Yes. Oh well, it was Emily. Emily helped take care of that. So, just also so everyone knows, I have about 20 libraries waiting to join right now. So I'm getting those libraries added as quickly as possible. But really, this week we've had, I think, probably in the first 4 weeks, I've had the most emails and libraries interested about it. I think people are finally seeing it and now have an idea of what it is. And so definitely the most interest this week from libraries about the program.
There was interest in when we might see some usage statistics as well. So I mean,
yeah,
I think
so
we need to give it a little time, but.
Yeah, I was planning on sending that out after the first of the month for April.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that all members and attractions get that information. I'm also starting, I'm hopefully next month, I'll be starting like a email newsletter for all the members, kind of like Anna does for eRead to all the members, just to kind of let everybody know any new attractions, just keeping everybody informed of things that are going on with the program.
Thank you, Jessica.
Sure.
And okay, and now we will move on to the Illinois State Library Report.
And I'll do it from back here. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here today, or I'm glad I could make it in person today instead of being in that room by myself, I guess, on the camera. So it's very nice. Big news this morning from the State Library. Joe Natale was named Chief Deputy Director.
Oh my goodness!
I am personally thrilled. It's good to be getting our administrative staff back in place. And Joe has, for those of you who don't know him, he has 38 years of experience with the Secretary of State's office, most of it with the State Library. Many years ago, he ran several grant programs in the Library Development Group, including the construction grant program. He took some time and was at the Secretary of State's Index Department running the Administrative Code Unit. So he has a lot of experience with administrative rulemaking, and we rely on him heavily anytime that something comes up in that area anyway. So we're very, very happy to make that announcement today. And you're the first outside of the State Library that's heard that. So we'll send something later when I get back to Springfield. As Dee mentioned, April 4th, we did have a joint meeting with the two library systems in Carly. I thought that was very productive. We're anxious to hold more of those sessions in the future and to get them scheduled for participants. And certainly board members are welcome to do or to attend that as well if you find the interest in doing that. It's modeled much like what the old system presidents and directors meetings were for those of you who have been around a while, and when there were 18 systems and 18 presidents and directors, it made more sense, but now it truly does become the directors and staff often. Today, letters of encouragement to all public libraries in the state regarding the Census 2020 were going in the mail. As Dee knows well, following with what and those of you who have been following what the Illinois Library Association has been doing too, there will be a likely push to have the public libraries in all communities as a place where you can complete your census data. Certainly because of the way Illinois law is, and different policies that have been adopted across the state with public libraries, that may pose some problems because they're not all registered library patrons that may come into the library, but certainly this is very, very important as far as congressional seats, but also as far as funding for this state. And even funding for libraries is tied to that population data with the Grants to States program, which does in part fund the Reaching Across Illinois library system too. So this is very, very important that we see as complete a participation as possible. So those are in the mail. Also, and something that is not new, but this is more of a reminder than anything for public library districts, and I will share this with each of the library systems. Letters regarding trustee vacancies, and there is a reporting requirement that within 60 days of a vacancy, those are to be reported to the state. That is in addition to what's done in the public library annual report that is filed. That's nothing new. That's something that hasn't been followed as closely, but I think events in the last year, year and a half are certainly making our department pay much closer attention to those vacancies as they're occurring, and just kind of a reminder that needs to be attempts to get those filled as soon as possible. And as Dee well knows, it wasn't with the district, but we've seen entire boards disappear. So it's not just within one library system. So
Well, it went on for years.
For years, and
ridiculous.
in others where we've seen, board members resigning overnight at some communities. So it's been a very big problem, but it's something that we're going to be following much more closely. So those should leave the state library on Monday, certainly by Tuesday. Big developments in the coming weeks, the budget. What does become of the state's budget in FY20? Of course, our office and the Secretary is committed to maintaining the level of funding that we've had in 19, and I think we're still trying to see some recovery from where we were in a couple of years where we didn't have a complete budget at all. And we fared far better than some agencies within state government, and including higher ed in that case, and Gwen can relate to that, I'm sure. So be interesting to see what develops with that. There's a lot to be done in the next few weeks. What could be possibly done with the graduated income tax, and I think that will be a big driver to see where we go, certainly in the future, but even in the near future before that tax increase would get implemented. We're also very interested in what is happening at the federal level, and following that very closely. The current administration's budget zeroes out the Institute of Museum and Library Services once again. There are certainly legislative efforts and appropriations bills that should contain funding for that. That again is very important to Illinois libraries and this body today. system funding is still reliant on 15% of the total allocation comes from federal funding from IMLS. So that's very important to this organization meeting today and the state as a whole. And unlike, and Dee and I just had this conversation, unlike many states, the state library in Illinois doesn't retain that for its own operation or statewide services. We're granting that out, pushing that out the doors across the state. So we'll be following that very, very closely. We just made announcements for the FY19 Live and Learn construction grants. The state was able to fund 12 of those applications. It's really, and we denied just as many, but there was simply no funding to fund everyone. It wasn't about the application itself. It's just the limitations on the money available. And interestingly enough, in recent years, we haven't had sufficient applications to meet the appropriation level, but certainly the need this year was significantly different. We are in the final process of reviewing the Project Next Generation grant applications for FY20 and also all of the literacy grant programs, which there are libraries who participate either directly with funding or indirectly through the family literacy initiatives across the state. So announcements regarding those will be coming in the coming weeks. I'm certain of that. Just to keep this a bit brief, as I left, Elevate was being set up in the atrium of the State Library, so I know that several of you will be leaving this meeting and going to that. So we're always happy to host or be the host site for those initiatives that are actually being administered now by the Library Association with great support from the library systems and other libraries within the state, so, and us. But we're always pleased to see those groups come and be there. And we'll look forward to Directors you in June. So. That's enough from me.
It's always nice to see you in person.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we will move on to new business and the fiscal year 2019-20 budget. This is discussion of a draft operational plan. Dee?
Yes, thank you. So there is a draft included, and there's also, I wrote a cover memo for it. So as you as many of you know who've been on the board for a while, this is the annual time that we apply for our grant from the State Library for our budget, and they send out quite a robust, detailed application, and which we respond to, and it's they have priorities that the Secretary of State has established that we, of course, comply with and want to, because it's about resource sharing, it's about helping libraries. And then we also have our own strategic plan, and fortunately those are all very closely aligned. So this is the first draft of the narrative. We're still working on the budget, which we will certainly be balanced budget, and which we will have all of that for you to look at next month, and it gets submitted by June 1st. So it is organized, the draft operational plan is organized by our goals from the strategic plan and the priorities of the state. So it starts out with resource sharing, of course. And I just thought I would take you through it, not in great, horrible detail, but this is the most important thing that we do all year, so if you will indulge me for a bit. So as I said, starts with resource sharing, and I will draw your attention to, I would say throughout the document there is a lot of mention of the different types of libraries, because of course we provide services to multiple types, but there is quite an emphasis on school libraries this year because of the board's request for that, and because also it was just so much what we heard during the strategic planning of what bad shape they're in. So you'll see a lot about that just on the first page, targeted training for schools as an example. Talk about Explore More, which you just heard about from Jessica, is also an example of resource sharing. We, as always, have money, large amounts of money in the budget to support our ongoing commitment to the LSAPs, as well as adding members to LSAPs. I think for this year it will be somewhere around $300,000, or for next year, I should say, it will be somewhere around $300,000 that we're expecting. Anne always does a really good job of finding out who might be in the pipeline, and this year, it doesn't always pan out completely, but there's always some, so that's really great. Find More is also in this section, expanding that, which, as you know, is, you've been hearing about that, is growing as we go, with libraries coming on board across the state. And then this is also where Simply E is. That is a great example of resource sharing, of facilitating resource sharing. So that's in the plan of service as well. Of course, delivery, also part of resource sharing. So this, as we've told you already, this next year will be very much a planning year as we get the next phase of the LASA study about optimal places for hubs, maybe better ways possibly of doing the routing. And we also are looking at evaluating our outsourcing of delivery to see if that is still the best way to go. We are thinking of maybe hiring an outside consultant expert to help us with that, so we're sure that we give it a good objective look. And then, we still get questions from libraries of all types, but mostly, I guess, academic and public, about why they have to pay for delivery to additional, if they have more than one building or location. I mean, you'd be probably a good example also, Michelle, Warren County. But certainly of academic libraries, that does come up, and we're wondering if we could maybe work with the state library to fix that so that they wouldn't have to then, deliver it or mail it or, figure it out internally, because it's, they're not always close to each other. I mean, sometimes it makes sense. I can speak personally. Oak Park Library, they're all within a mile of each other, but that's not necessarily true of academic campuses, for sure. Let's see, so then we're hoping to expand cooperative purchases. So there's a lot about resource sharing in here. That's goal 1 goes through page 8, I think. So then in goal 2, you'll see a lot about telling library story, which is about advocacy. It's about the campaign that we're going to be working on that we've told you about. It's about using data to show return on investment for things that libraries do, and helping libraries by providing marketing templates, or all those kinds of things that we can do both on a sort of a macro and a micro level. Goal 3 is about helping libraries be the best they can be, which is about training, obviously, but as well as our partnership with HR Source to provide subsidized membership in HR Source. It's about the FOIA OMA hotline that we provide for libraries, helping by sponsoring or working with our colleagues on Directors University and Elevate. It's about the standards, which at a future meeting, I will update you on the story of the standards and certification. Let's see, training trustees. Speaking of trustees, that's all. I mean, every year we get new trustees, and we can't keep up with what we got from last year. So we have to find a better way or more ways of working with trustees. The census is coming up as we move into preparing libraries for the future. The minimum wage, help with understanding and implementing that, the census. L2 is a big project. Some of us have been on quite the road trip this week. Ann and Wes and Jody were in Edwardsville earlier this week, and then yesterday doing town hall meetings about L2 and the redo of that, and that's a very important database for Rails, for Heartland, for the State Library, and this is going to be L2 2.0 or something. So it's a big deal. So that's going to go on for at least a year. And let's see, what else? Well, then the last part is about being, being as good an organization as we can possibly be, internally, so that we can do all these things in a great way for our members. So it talks about training staff and making sure we have the kind of resource, the kind of staff that we need to have, and so staff development and working on innovative things for our members. So that's a pretty brief overview of a great document that Mary writes for us, and that we all then pile on and add things or take things out, or so I'm happy to answer questions or provide more information on anything either today or in the future if I don't have it right at my fingertips.
I'd just like to say I'm really glad to see the work happen on L2. I was actually there when L2 was born.
Showing your age, Paul.
Yeah, I am showing my age.
That's kidding. It's not that old.
You can say it. It's fine. It was a very innovative project at the time, because we had many more regional library systems than we had now, and that was an innovative idea to bring them together. Showed good collaboration, and I'm just glad to see that the work's continue to make it even better in the future.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Dee. We will move on to the Executive Director evaluation, and this is discussion only. So, Dee has sent you her self-evaluation.
I sent it to you, actually.
Oh, you sent it to
Paul,
me.
just to you and Paul.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, apologize.
Well, and Paul, jump in here because I'm a little...
Right.
It's a different process that I do at my work for evaluation, so it's a little learning curve for me here. So we have it. When will it be released to everyone?
That is for you to. Okay. So first of all, let me say that Paul suggested that instead of that form, that the multi-page paper form, that we create a SurveyMonkey-based document. So we have done that, and I think it's going to be a lot easier for the board to use, because you all complete your own version of it, and then it gets sent to Laura and Paul, and then it gets compiled into one document.
Right.
And then you discuss it, and I thought you discussed it in May, and then talked to me about it in June. That's what I remember. But since we only do it once a year, and since I'm not really privy to the process, I don't remember.
I believe you're correct.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, yes. So
I would note that my board actually switched, my board used a very similar evaluation process where there's an MS Word document that each trustee received. It went back to the people responsible for compiling it, which was a fair amount of work.
Yes,
and
it is.
You know, dump everything to an Excel spreadsheet. SurveyMonkey just automates the process both for the person completing the evaluation, but also then the person who has to compile it, because SurveyMonkey does all that routine work for you. So Laura and I had talked about a timeline, and actually that, if the board was reasonable with that, we could certainly get the SurveyMonkey link sent out to everyone and have it perhaps set a deadline prior to the May board meeting, so that everyone could then have the compiled results and we could have that conversation in May.
That sounds perfect.
I mean, would it be possible to have the link out like by next week?
I think so, because I think Dee and her team have put the data together, so that's the great thing.
Jody
Jody
created the form, so.
Jody?
It's ready to go whenever you're ready to distribute.
So we could release it as early as like Monday?
Today?
And then that would give people.
Theoretically.
We'll say early next. Let's say next
Monday.
week.
Fine.
Next week.
Yes.
Well, it's still fresh in people's minds, is what I'm
Yes,
thinking.
good
And
point.
then that would give them. Do we usually leave it open for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
2 weeks about a good time? Okay, so that's kind of loosely our timeline. We will try to get it released next week, leave it open for 2 weeks, which should give us enough time to get results, which are going to be much easier to.
Yes.
We won't need that long, which
think-
will lead us to have
I think
be
it will
ready
be easier for you.
for the next
That's
board meeting.
Certainly
Okay.
seems undoubtedly.
Okay.
Yeah.
My board's feedback was this was so much easier to have it in a SurveyMonkey format than having to, find the MS Word document, edit it, save it, send it as an attachment.
Right.
It just made the process much better for everyone, so that you can focus on the content, not about the procedures
Right,
of
right.
working with the document.
Well, that was a great idea. So thank you, Paul, for organizing and bringing forth that idea of the
Absolutely.
SurveyMonkey and everyone else who had a part in switching our process on that a little bit. I think it's going to be much better.
For everybody, yes. Thank you, Jody, for doing all the hard work to make it possible, so.
Okay, so maybe look for the survey link next week,
Yes.
which will go in the their Rails webmail. Is that how we send it, through the Rails email?
Rails mail.
Okay.
Rails mail.
Rails email.
Yes.
Oh, well, that
Board
comes
email.
immediately.
Right. Well, as opposed to like your work email or
Right.
something like that, it'll be in your written. Because I always have to remember to
my
check
existence.
both emails. Yes. Okay. Okay. Any questions about the D's evaluation? Okay. All right. We will move to 8.3, membership changes due to annual certification results. This is discussion and action, and Jane will discuss her memo.
Yes, as you know, there is a fairly detailed memo packet. So I'll just do a few highlights. Certification process concluded officially on May 31st. We did work with March.
Right, right.
31st, we did work with Gwen Harrison at the State Library on some follow-up with some libraries that still had open issues, some of which were resolved. And we made every effort to communicate to libraries, both through ENU, our website, and our certification team, Emily, Jody, Karen Goyer, and Marty Schmidt. Reached out to every library that did not certify just through our general announcements. So through that process, we had 15 members who withdrew voluntarily for various reasons. Some of them closed completely, some closed their libraries, some no longer have a librarian, others just didn't tell us. So those were 6 special libraries, 6 school libraries, and 3 academic libraries. The academic libraries were the for-profit schools that closed completely. So in the end, we did have 2 libraries that failed to certify, Baker and McKenzie, LLP, and Reed Smith, LLP. They, as a final step, we received certified letters, so we would ensure that they had official notification. So I would ask that the board recommend those libraries to the state library for suspension.
Jane, I just had a question actually about one of the withdrawn members. For Bishop McNamara Catholic High School, it says voluntary withdrawal. Do we know if they still have a librarian or not?
I don't know that they gave us a reason for withdrawal, because I recorded it when I knew.
Okay. Thank you.
There were a couple of the school libraries that do hope to reapply later. Several of them were hoping to improve their funding situation so that they could hire a school librarian in the future.
Thank you.
I was just curious, is this about what you see every year as far as withdrawals? Like, how does it compare with? Is it normal?
I've not been as involved in as much detail, so in terms of voluntary withdrawals, I'm not sure. Jody, do you know?
Some of the voluntary withdrawals were because they said they had not, did not have staff 15 hours, or their library closed.
But how does it compare to previous years?
Previous years, last year we didn't have, I can't say for sure about.
Yeah. Last year, everybody certified, but I don't know that we know off the top of our heads about voluntary withdrawals.
I was just curious. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Further questions? All right, may I have a motion that Baker & McKenzie LLP and Reed Smith LLP be recommended for suspension to the Illinois State Library for failure to certify?
So moved.
Yeah. Whoa, all right, we heard you, Jay. Moved by Jay. Do we have a second? Second by Thomas. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay, on to unfinished business, the strategic plan progress report. This is discussion only too, and Dee will review the plan.
Yeah, so we keep bringing this back due to popular demand, or not. Seriously, I think it is interesting being able to look at this in close juxtaposition with the plan for next year, or the operational plan for next year, because you can see how there's continuity, but there's also some new stuff. So I thought I would talk a little bit today about goal 2, which is work with libraries of all types to tell the story. Starts on page 7, and you'll see right there that what we did in terms of the video, that we've gotten the campaign ready to go. That we're as we said, we've been working on these templates and hired a data coordinator and analyst person, Grant Halter, who is behind me. We're all pinning a lot of our hopes on Grant, that's for sure.
No pressure.
He's going to solve all our problems. The advocacy work that we did last year in terms of going to the legislative meetups, the number of, in goal 3, the help libraries be the best they can be, the number of, just between September, or the end of September, so October and December, that we had 13 CE events with over 600 attendees. I mean, that's a lot for a staff of 1 to pull off. And then Elevate is mentioned again, and of course tomorrow some of us are actually, well, Joe and I are going there. I don't know. You're going to be a participant?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be great. Just some specific examples in that particular goal of the kinds of things that we accomplished last year, and we're hoping to do another video. It met with such support. We're hoping to focus on I'm sure this is going to be a difficult story to tell, but one of the most frequently mentioned frustrations of libraries is, people saying to them, oh, we don't need you anymore because we have the internet now. And so we have told our video team that's the question that we want addressed. And so they're okay, they said. So I don't know how you do that in a minute and a half, but or 3 minutes. So
and make you cry.
And yes, apparently it's important to actually be brought to tears
in these videos.
Because the last one did. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Just a few examples in this document that shows, this talks about what we did last year, just to show you how it is also linked up to what we're going to be doing next year, which is good. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for such a detailed report.
Oh, well, I think it's, we need to tell you what we're doing and tell members what we're doing. Show their tax dollars at work.
This is almost like the talking points kind of
thing.
That's how I've used it.
That's true. It's very specific.
Right.
Yep. Thank you, Liza. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, so kind of related to this, but not totally this, is I was thinking sometime in the future I'd like to see some usage statistics for Find More Illinois in more detail to see who's using it, what kind of stuff is happening with it now that it's growing more.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Jane's writing that down.
What kind of statistics?
Well, like who's using it? Well, there may be some limits as to what we can get. What kind of things are getting used? How much? What is the volume? How it's grown as the number of participants have grown?
Okay.
I mean, I know I get the Find More Illinois updates from Eric just because our library is participating, so I probably hear more about it than other board members might. So even that, who's participating, what, who they are, how that number is growing.
Okay. Anything else on the strategic plan? Okay, hearing nothing, we will move on to board development and reports on the ACRL conference by Dan and Gwen.
Well, so first, let me just say I'm sorry that I was not able to attend the ACRL conference, so I can't report on it.
Okay.
So
it'll be a short report.
Dan, it's all on you.
Yeah.
And ACRL
so it sounds like
for Association of College and Research Libraries.
Right, this is like the major national conference every 2 years for academic librarians.
Yeah, so this was 2 weeks ago in Cleveland. The event was attended by more than 3,000 people from all 50 states, from 22 different countries. I was a representative of the 150 to 200 academic libraries across Rails. So I really went in with two goals. One was to kind of educate myself on the topics related to academic libraries, particularly in Illinois. And then the other goal was to bring together, where possible, bring together staff from Illinois academic libraries, mostly for networking. So for the first goal, for the second goal, we brought together people with IACRL, which is the Illinois Association for College and Research Libraries, to an Illinois Academic Library Meetup event on Thursday, April 11th. That was at Southern Tier Brewing in Cleveland. It was open to anyone. We had 8 people come participate, libraries across Illinois. We had people from Western Illinois. We had people from someone from Waubonsee Community College was there, someone from Heartland Community College was there, and then Michelle Nielsen-Ott, who was my colleague from IACRL, helping to coordinate the event. She was also there. So it was a fun event, just kind of nice to talk to people, hear what's going on, hear how their conference is going. To address the first goal, I tried to attend as many of the Illinois Academic Library sessions as I possibly could. And I saw academic librarians from Trinity Christian College, which is very close to Burr Ridge here, Northwestern Illinois, UIC, DePaul, Northwestern. So I tried to go to as many of those to support our academic librarians, but also kind of hear what they're up to. Particularly notable was a session jointly presented by NEIU and Northwestern, and that was on working with local high schools. So they both partner with local high schools in their area to get the kids in the academic libraries to learn academic library research skills and kind of just getting a college experience for them. So that was a lot of fun. There were also a lot of sessions that were on the experiences of people of color in libraries and how academic libraries can create a more inclusive culture, both from the programming side and also from the policy and hiring side. I attended a really great session on hiring practices in academic libraries, and specifically how academic libraries are adapting their hiring policies to sort of dismantle the barriers, especially for people of color. My impression is that this experience, this is sort of experiences that our academic libraries could use. I think that they could use a lot of training and education in this area. And that's actually something that I saw yesterday. Gwen and I were at an academic library networking event in Waubonsee, and that's something that they asked for. That was the topic of our networking event, and they wanted more, frankly. In the monthly report, the Rails monthly report that you can see, Jane attended a conference at the International Coalition of the Library Consortia, and that was one of the themes that she had on there too, is equity, diversity, inclusion. So nationally, I think it's really on the tip of everyone's tongue, and I think we should be pushing our libraries past the point of awareness and further into action. Any questions?
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, Rails board member reports. Would anyone like to share what is happening in their library? We can start in Burr Ridge. Does anyone in Burr Ridge want to start with something that's happening in their library, or anyone on the phone? Okay, there's nothing happening in libraries in Burr Ridge. Just kidding. I'm sure there's plenty happening. Okay, how about here in East Peoria? Anybody want to share anything going on with their library?
I do have something. Our Friends of the Library Group had their annual meeting this week, and they approved a request from our staff to fund 2 artists in residence at our Studio 300 for the coming years. So we're really excited about that. Now we have to find some artists. I'm really excited about that.
Any particular kind of artist?
Someone who, it's a very broad criteria. Someone who is committed to working in the studio X hours a week, participate in both library-wide and community-wide events to talk about their craft, and just to be able to have conversations with community members about the work that they're doing.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Interesting.
Go ahead, Michelle.
At Warren County Public Library, unfortunately, we are losing our children's services librarian, Danielle Morrison, and so we would be happy if anyone wants to send us a children's librarian.
Go ahead.
So a couple things that are happening at the University of Illinois at Chicago Libraries. One thing is we are developing a pop-up library to take around to different places on campus to events and so forth. And a great way that we're doing that is we have a large college of architecture and design at our university, so we are asked students in that college to design models for us to draw from to make this pop-up library. So the students have sort of done entries for this design competition, and they're on display in the library for students and staff to vote on. Not that we're necessarily going to pick exactly the one that wins the most student votes, but so students got to design them, and now students will be participating in selecting which one we use. We also are starting a new program this summer where we are having some undergraduate student interns at the library. We're looking at this as kind of a recruiting tool from our very diverse student body for people who are interested in librarianship as a career, and undergraduates, a big thing these days is to have internships. So we're doing a couple internships for our UIC students at the library, and we're making available different kind of projects that they can choose from to explore librarianship as a career, and we're paying them.
That's great.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? All right, let's move on to agenda building for the next Rails board meeting. The next Rails board meeting will be held Friday, May 24th in Burr Ridge. And I think there's a time change.
It's at 10.
It's 10 a.m. Because of the Memorial Day holiday, just to be aware of that. Which I'm glad Dee mentioned earlier, because I probably would have showed up at 1 o'clock.
No, you wouldn't have.
You never know.
I wouldn't have let that happen.
So on the agenda will be the approval of the system area per capita grant, an update on Rails e-resources, and review of the executive director, and a review of the policy committee charge. Do we have anything else we would like to place on the agenda? Okay. Well, hearing no additional comments, I gotta try. Okay. I call this meeting to adjournment at 2:16 p.m. on whatever today is, Friday, April 26th. I'm sorry, it's been a long week. So we will adjourn 2:16 Friday, April 26th. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
Laura.
It's pretty bad when you don't know